Sit back underneath this wonderful show of Divine Oracle podcast that can be found right here underneath Podbean with your hosts, Psychic Me, Chris and Jillian. At times, so that they will be having special guests coming to you, talking about their own spiritual journeys and where you can find them.
And good day, everybody. It is yours truly, Psychic Me brother Chris here, and Jillian sitting in the studio. Hey, Jill, how's it going?
Hey everyone, it's going okay. I hope the weather has been great for everybody. And I can't predict the future, so let's see how the weather goes for the rest of the day.
That's like us. Yes, I know our area, though, the date that we are recording this show, we've actually had nothing but freezing rain. And it's always hard, especially with the weather. But right now, sitting in the studio, we actually have Paula Hunter. She is a psychic medium, and we do say welcome, Paula.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, would you like to let our listeners know a little bit about you by any chance?
Sure, I can do that. Obviously, Paula Hunter. This is work. I use the term psychic medium. I'm actually channel, but nowadays there's not as many people that recognize what a channel is. So I use the term psychic medium, and I've been doing this work for over 25 years now. Take a look back and you're like, wow, I can't believe it's been that long since we did this, since I started it. And for me, I mean, I think a lot of people, well, we know everyone's intuitive. It's just to what degree we are intuitive. And for myself, I was always an empath. I was always told, you're too sensitive. And I'm sure other people have heard that as well. And so I was always open to energy. It was making me sick. I was just really struggling. I'm what's called a physical empath as well. So I was feeling people's pain, you know, going to work and riding on a train and picking up everybody's stuff by the time you get into work. And I was actually lucky enough to meet up with another psychic that helped me to understand who I was and what was going on for me, because obviously when I started it, there was no internet. There was no resource where you could get online and just research things. So for me, it was always an interest in the supernatural and spirits and things. And, you know, a lot of reading, a lot of research. As I said, a psychic kind of connected with me, and I started doing a lot of training underneath. But one of the things that I found doing this work as well, and for myself too, is a lot of times that development or that opening happens from a trauma. And for me, I was in a relationship with a husband, a partner, and he was abusive. And at that time, I was a very good victim, shall we say. And I think we feel like we have no power and we have no control and we just allow things to go on. And for me, that was the first time I heard my guides, is through that process. I had just kind of finally left and I was angry. And I heard my guide say to me, take responsibility for yourself, you allowed it.
Yeah.
And for me, that really angered me. It's like, I didn't let him do this to me. But I recognized that, as I said, I was playing a victim. And I felt I couldn't stand up. I couldn't do anything. I didn't tell anybody. I just hid away with it. So it was such a huge almost slap in the face. But for me, that was also the very beginning of a path of discovering who I was, you know, the truth of who I was.
Did you start taking courses after that? Like, did you seek any counseling? Did you go get therapy? Like, did you do anything?
I didn't go the traditional route for therapy. But for me, with that opening, obviously a lot of readings. I've taken all sorts of courses. I do all sorts of things besides just the psychic medium. But for me, it was beginning to learn how to key into my guides. And I guess you can say they held me accountable. You know, they wouldn't let me hide away and make excuses. If I say I try, they would say there is no try, there is do or do not, right?
Yeah.
So I had to learn to develop that sense. And my modem, I guess, of connection is very different from a lot of people. I first started actually using boards. And I used to make my own, but it was not from, I guess, the traditional Ouija woohoo thing. But what I learned, and I know, is everything is energy, and intention is energy. So for me, it was getting on and saying my intention was to connect with the best of the best. I want to connect with high-level beings that are here to help me. So there was a lot of just kind of practice on my own, trial and error. As we said, there was no internet, so you couldn't go and research things. So it was just a lot of practice and trusting what you're getting. And trusting became, this is what I got, let me write it down. This is what I got, write it down. Because that becomes your lexicon, that becomes all your symbols, because everybody's unique, as we know, as far as how we receive symbols. But it also gave me validation, so I could begin to trust what I was getting by obviously going back and kind of going, oh, this means that, right? I started to understand how it started to come together. So not traditional, I guess, healing stuff, but just a lot of the soul searching.
Yeah. Now, did you find it became easy to you, or was it like at times like you were hitting a brick wall?
I think is not necessarily a brick wall, but I think there was a lot of times there was a lot of frustration. So again, I was using a board and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Come on, let's come in. And I get on there and go, just move a little bit. And then I just want to pick it up and use it as a Frisbee. But it's like, no, I'm not in a space I can do it right now. Let me put it aside. Let me come back. So, it isn't, I mean, some people may just pick it up and go with it. But for me, I had to do the practice, right? I had to put in the work. I had to learn to trust, because I was always what I call left brain. Give me the proof. So one of the things they said is just believe. Okay. So I'm like, well, what does that mean? When we're like that, what does it mean? Really?
Yeah.
But that's what I had to learn to do.
I love the word, though, that you keep on using, which is trust. Because I find, though, that a lot of people out there will start working within the spiritual community, and all of a sudden they don't trust.
And I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls is we get stuck in our head. We think we're not good enough, or we think, how could I be possibly connecting with this or with that? And we will second guess that. And that was one of my things. I started with guides. It was in 2012 that I started doing more of the mediumship. And that was simply because I said, I don't want to work with spirit at first. I don't want to wake up and see you standing beside me and freaking me out.
Yeah.
Right. So I set the intention and the energy. And we know how the universe brings everything around. For me, it was, okay, I'm ready to start working with spirit. I had two ladies come in. I used to have a metaphysical store. And I started picking off one and giving her information. And they're like, oh, we should tell you what we do. And handed me a card, and they were paranormal investigators. So I'd ask spirit that I was ready for it. And then I had a group step forward, and I worked with them for 5 years, honing my skill sets as a medium right in there. But again, it just shows you when you set up the intention and the energy, the universe supplies.
What do you do nowadays, though? Because I'm looking at your website, and it says that you offer readings and a couple other things.
Right. So with me, I started with the store and as a psychic medium, I guess, if you can say. But I've always looked at it as the more tools that I have in my toolbox, the more ways I can assist people. So I started my Reiki, I think that was back in the early 2000s, and that was kind of the gateway of opening to the energy, because you have what's called attunements in Reiki, and it began to help me have those connections. But over the years, it's for me, I love to learn. So I'm a clinical aromatherapist, I'm a clinical hypnotist. I just finished some stuff on spiritual coaching, which focuses on trauma release and things like that. So in 2018, I officially closed my store and I work more with clients. So it's kind of like, how can I help you? What's going on? And that was the biggest thing for the past little while. And then, the guides have been talking about for probably about 10 years. But last year I really started, okay, I want to help train people now. I want to help people come into their own. It's nice to sit down and give someone information in a reading or make that connection and they go away with it. But I want so much more, because we are in an energy and a time where people are opening up with the shift. And a lot of people are going, I don't know who I am. I don't know where I'm going. I feel lost. I feel disconnected. So I'm moving a lot more into training too with what I call my Enlightened Academy. And to me, it isn't just, let me give you a tool of, here's clairvoyance, here's some practice you can do with it, but truly helping people learn about metaphysical properties behind it. What is the background? So it isn't just gods are talking at the same time. It's like the analogy of, giving someone a fish and they eat for a day. or teaching them to fish and they have what they need. So for me, that's what my guides have been pushing me more towards, is helping people understand the truth beneath it, who they are, how energy function and works, and how they create things. It's all interconnected. We can learn a psychic skill set, but unless you've done the work on the underneath side, you'll only be able to achieve a certain level.
I love that.
So you went from where you were back then to being a mentor now in today's standards. So you're a mentor and a teacher. So have you managed to follow up with any of your previous, I would say, students in the past, in the last little while? Have you like checked in with them? Do you keep updated?
It's a great question. The mentorship is actually just starting this year for me.
Oh.
So I just, I've been told about it for so long, but it's like, yeah. And again, I think we get in our heads and go, but do I know enough? Do I have enough experience? Can I teach somebody? And then we get into the place, well, how am I going to get it out there? Like that monkey mind starts really throwing everything in. So this year in January is when I started what I call my membership, Spiritual Circle membership. And then this year I'm also going to develop an intuitive program, but also, as I said, looking at the deeper fundamentals that I think are important. So I would have ran, certain courses off and on when I had my store, but no real, I don't say meat to it, but really trying to get to that deeper place. So it's a great question, and I'm going to have to, think of more ways to do that. I have a community as well, so we'll use Zoom, bringing people in, what do you want to see? What's going on? How can I help you? Right? I think the communication becomes key, right? How do I keep in touch with people?
Yes.
Exactly. And that's important in today's day and age too.
Yeah. And it's not easy. I mean, there's so much competition. And I kind of chuckle sometimes and I see I'm a third generation, whatever. And I just chuckle because it's like, you know what? It's the essence of the soul.
Yeah.
That is the truth of the experience. So I don't care how many generations are there that you learned it, but how much learning is coming from that soul perspective. How many times around the block have you been, if you will, burned at the cross or, at the stake, sorry, all these things. And it's through our experiences and our challenges, right? Maybe not everybody looks at it that way.
Yeah, I love that though. The reason was because, for me though, I'm third generation indigenous, right? My great grandmother was a spiritual doctor, but the thing though is, even though I kind of keep to my indigenous side, I work actually as myself.
Yeah.
Right, and I love the way that you put that.
Well, I think the lines, if you will, the term epigenetics, how it gets passed down through the DNA, like that plays its part as well.
Yeah.
But it's that soul that comes back through that process of reincarnation and the challenges and the learning. I think, again, that's the essence of what we are. We choose where we come in, how we come in, our family, which still has a bearing in it. But to me, it's still the truth of, who we are here.
Now, do you find right where you are, do you find though that a lot of people are reaching out, trying to ask questions? Because I know that you're over.
I love that question.
I know you're over there in New Brunswick. So
New Brunswick.
Yeah.
I live in a very small community. I was living out west. I'm actually from Ontario as well. And when I came out here, I looked around and I said, oh my God, where did you bring me? And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it was like stepping back in time. All the fundamentals and learning, was so much more apparent in like Alberta and BC where I was. And when I came here, there was people know Reiki, but that was it. So I live in a community that is very old school. So when I first kind of came, and I actually had my store in town for a brief period of time too, it was like, don't go into the devil's store. Like I was getting a lot of that from the community. I'd have people that would, park out back so nobody could see their cars in the lot. I'd have other people that would park in front of my store, hands up in the air, and I could tell they were praying. The first instinct is you want to go out and say, hey, get out of my space. But the guides simply said to me, recognize you're going into the same space as them. Yeah. So I would go to the window and smile and wave at them. Kill them with kindness, if you will. Mm-hmm. But recognizing not going to that place. So people are more just opening up here. The one thing for me is with COVID began opening a lot of doors because people became more open to online sessions. Whereas before, it was like people wanted to come here. So it begins to really broaden that horizon, because now we can get students or clients from anywhere around the world, right? So it was, again, the learning curve to step out of just having to be here. And, I know that's a question from some clients sometime, going, well, how can you pick up energy if you're there and I'm over here? Right? So sometimes explaining it to people too. I'm a channel. I can pick up the energy, but I just get in the zone and listen to them. They tell me what you need, or spirit. There is no difference in energy whether you're here or halfway around the world. Yeah. We're all accessing it from the same place.
Exactly. Because I know small communities have a hard time changing. They don't like change. They don't like new people. I grew up my whole life in the region here, and I absolutely hate it. I've spent my entire life trying to get out, and I did manage to get out for a little while, moved to Ottawa for a bit, and I was like, I don't want to go back to KW. I do not want to be here. So for you being from, I guess larger places, moving to a smaller region, that was a big change for you, but for them as well. So how did they accept you? Like, at what point in time did they start going, hey, you're one of us now? Like, you're a community, you're an islander, you're part of us.
It's again, a very good question. At some level, I'm not sure they fully accepted me anyway. I live outside of a small community in the country. For me, I started getting, I guess, more recognition in people when I had my store in St. John, right? That was the catalyst to become a beacon or a spot for people to come in. So I understood there was like a lot of, I don't say hidden types of religious beliefs, but there was. So my store became a depot so people could come and ask questions and not be worried. Because a lot of times they go, well, I can't talk about this or how I'm feeling with someone else. They'll think I'm crazy. Right? So
they made your store like a neutral ground then.
Yeah, because again, it's not about judgment. I always said to my guides too, let me be a depot for those that are trying to find their way, putting that energy out, and the people will come through the door. And I would have people that come in like, oh, I didn't even know you were here. I walk by here all the time, right? But we know when the person is ready that they will show up, right? So I think my exact community where I live still doesn't know what to think about me. And I've been here for, well, over 15 years now. But on the if you will, the bigger level in some of the larger communities, I've kind of paid my dues, I guess you can say. So I have a reputation or a name. So that helps to bring people around, right? The word of mouth.
That's good.
Yeah.
So we're going to go kind of to your website. I'm right now looking at the page to do with your store. I presume, though, that you're right now on an online store. But what type of merchandise do you carry by any chance?
For me, one of the things I will always carry is crystals. I love my crystals. So tumbled crystals, specimen pieces. I have like rings and jewelry and stuff. I just, I know you're looking behind me. I know they can't see it, but, figurines, candles, things like that. Since I've come home and officially closed it, I don't bring regular stuff in. But as I said, crystals will always be there. I probably have at least 130, 140 different tumbled crystals. The ones you can throw in your pocket, easiest to do. Yeah. So yeah, a few different things, but not a lot like I did when I had my physical storefront.
Because I'm noticing actually underneath your store, you got some amethysts. Right?
Amethyst?
Yeah. Now, for us though, here we also have our online store also. Now, your amethyst though, is it Canadian or is it from Brazil?
Would depend on the piece.
Okay.
More than anything. So some of them, what I call specimen pieces, they're carved, or you have the raw rock on the back. Some of them would be Brazilian. Obviously, they're higher end from that perspective. Your tumbled stuff is typically lower grade stuff. So you're buying it in, obviously a bag. So you're not always guaranteed of knowing where it's come from, depending on the supplier that you're dealing with.
Now, since you were doing paranormal investigations, did you ever take any crystals with you by any chance?
Yes, very much so. One of my favorite crystals is black tourmaline. And that is a protector. Anything black is a protector, but tourmaline is really good for bouncing negative energy back at somebody, as well as protection from spirit. So I would make sure before I would go in to do an investigation, we never know what we're dealing with, right? And we know that you can get attachments and other things follow you home. So the crystals became part of it being important to be, if you will, in my energy field or auric field. And I would use them when I clear too. So if I'm clearing a home, as I said, amethyst, quartz, and tourmaline, I would do something called gridding.
Yeah.
So using energy with the crystals, putting them in the four corners after clearing and setting an energy grid around it. Oh, sorry. And selenite as well. Sorry, my guides are talking to me again. They're like, you forgot the selenite. The selenite clears other crystals.
Yes.
So I would put those to hold a grid. So yeah, crystals became very important. And I still keep them around me all the time.
I know a couple years ago, my life partner and myself, we were doing a vendor show. And I had a black obsidian actually in a box. And I told him directly, be very careful. And what happened was he put his hand in, just slightly touched it, and all of a sudden, big cut. All right. And it's funny, though, because so many people don't realize what some of the crystals are made out of.
Yes. So, obsidian's volcanic glass.
Yes. So we just recently did a show in one of the cities, part of our community, and whenever people were going up to the black obsidian, I was like, please watch yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people, though, were kind of backing off at that point.
I think it's interesting too, because from an energy perspective, they will pick it up. They won't always be consciously aware.
Yeah.
And so because that's a repellent, if you will, if someone has some really negative energy, it's like, I can't even get close to it.
Yeah.
Right. Tourmaline is interesting too, because it'll take the brunt of an attack. So it'll break off. It'll do something similar, right? Where pieces will fall right off it. And people will go like, well, what's wrong with this? Well, hey, it's doing its job.
Yeah.
Right. So how crystals react to the energies. I used to keep them over my door for when people came in my store. And I would notice certain people that maybe weren't of the highest, and that's not judgment. They would almost reach for the door and then they would turn around and go out. They couldn't even come in because of the frequencies, right?
Yes.
Setting the intentions.
Now, you're basically Reiki. You were touching light about that with your hypnosis. Which one do you find, though, with certain clients, though, that is calling more for their energy?
You know, it's actually pretty interesting, because the end of last year, my guides have had me create a service that is Reiki with hypnosis, a massage with hypnosis. So if someone's getting a Reiki session, it is obviously coming from the energy perspective, but I'm now using, if you will, headphones of a pre-recorded hypnosis, and it's helping them to relax. And it's kind of saying, hey, you know, you're open to receiving this and just letting go. So it's helping the person really going into a calm, quiet place and talking to the subconscious. We know the subconscious has access to the soul at a more direct level. So by doing that, we're actually talking to the soul, saying, hey, you know, if you're willing to allow this in, we're going to amplify it. So it's really cool the way the guides have been saying it isn't like this service and this service anymore. They're trying to have me bring it in, like come together. I'm doing the same thing with my spiritual circle. Here's a meditation for a theme. Here's the hypnosis for the theme. So as an example, February was on self-love and the heart chakra. So the meditation is about opening the heart, and the hypnosis is, if you will, going to the inner child and letting go of the trauma of the inner child. So I find it very powerful and very much of assistance. And that's what the guides are telling me as far as psychic training too. Can hypnosis access the part of the brain that amplifies our psychic abilities?
Yes.
So I'm going to do research more on it, but what I've researched so far, I don't see anyone doing it.
Yes.
So I'm super excited to find out how that's going to come into play and what's the methodology, if you will, to do it, based on what my guides have told me. So it's all coming together. It's all energy at the end of the day, just different ways to access it.
Yeah.
As we go along and you're doing the hypnosis, I am reading here. I'm kind of interested in knowing more about the virtual gastric band hypnosis. What is that?
So that is a hypnosis program. It's a 4-session program. And what we're doing is under hypnosis, we're telling the body certain things. So the first session is about putting on the band. So if you think about going in and actually having the surgery done, they put a band around the stomach, so we just have a small portion. So we do that hypnotically. We're literally telling them, hey, you're going into the operating room. You've agreed to this. The band's being put in place. Now you're just going to eat less. So that's what begins to happen. We've told the subconscious that you don't need all this. So the first session is putting the band in place. And the second session is about what we call aversion. So if somebody has a food that they have difficulty staying away from, say it's a bag of potato chips, under hypnosis, we tell them and we give them a process that says you really don't want to put it in your mouth, right? From there, we go into what we call mortuary. So if the person's still having difficulty eating less, then, hey, there's yourself in a coffin. You keep doing this, that's what's going to happen. So subconsciously, it's almost like a scare tactic in some ways, right? Or we could bring in the fact of, hey, you need to exercise more. And then the last one is tightening up the band. So it's kind of a 4-week program. It isn't about you can eat this but not eat that. It's about the portion sizes, right? And helping someone become more comfortable here. And the body just responds. That's the real cool thing is I don't have to think about it, just like stop smoking or anything else. The body just goes, done. And it starts to make changes.
It's kind of the mind over matter kind of scenario.
When you say that, what I hear is yes and no. When you say mind over matter, it's because the guides are talking to me at the same time. They say this is the conscious mind, right, that is trying to say, oh, I'm going to believe this over that. But they say with hypnosis, we are bypassing that logical mind. We're not even going there. We say, go over here, listen to that nice, pretty music. The subconscious does not want to harm itself. So it accepts suggestions willingly. I couldn't make, or no one can. You can't make somebody do something they wouldn't normally do. So I couldn't hypnotize someone and say, go jump off a cliff, right? Unless they were going to do it. But when the subconscious says, oh, I'm harming myself, it just automatically makes changes. I don't have to think about it. It just does it. I don't know if that kind of makes sense a little bit or not.
Perfect sense.
Guides are so much fun because I've learned over the years how you phrase things and how you say things has bearing, right? So I've learned I have to be very specific sometimes because they'll like, no, that's not right. It's this over here.
Thinking before you speak.
Yeah. Even doing a reading for someone may say, hey, I want to know about this relationship. And then the guides may give me something over here based on what they said. And it's kind of like, no, let me come back to ask a question to get what you really want to know. Right? So sometimes in sessions, it literally is, let me sit here for just a second and get the information that you want. Right? Because it is very specific. And I guess I just shouldn't say different, but for me, it's like, hey, what do you want to know? When someone comes in for a reading, make your list of questions.
Yes.
What do you want to know? Yes. The more direct the question, the better I can respond. And for me, I've learned in some ways I'm different than mediums. And I think it's because I am a channel. It's who do you want to talk to? We can read who's there, but I don't care where they are. My guides help me make the connection wherever they are. So I don't have issues connecting with people, and they don't have to be there, or the spirit doesn't have to be there to come through. It's cool. I tell people, you're paying me for a service.
Yeah. Now, is there any little stories that you want to share with us before we let you go?
I for some reason, they're bringing me back to hypnosis again. And one of the other things I do too is past life regression.
Yeah.
Which is really kind of cool. And it's interesting how someone can come in and they think about the issues that they have. So as an example, I had one client that they came in and she had an issue with men in uniform. And she never knew why. And through hypnosis, we found out that she was basically raped and killed, and her son was murdered as well by uniformed men. Basically through the hypnosis, it was the German Gestapo. It was during the war. And she remembered what the uniform looked like. So after her session later on, she basically researched it, right? And she found it and she realized what was going on. So again, when we have an awareness of that, it stops. What was that, sorry?
Where can people reach out to you?
They can reach out to me right through my website. and that is www.paulahunter.ca. And that kind of gives access to my Facebook pages as well. If they're looking for training, I also have my Enlightened Academy. And there's references through both as well, because as I said, that's the way that they're not pushing me, but guiding me from behind. Like, let's get going.
Yes.
How do you do that? You know how it works, right?
Yeah.
We always say we have free will, but sometimes you just feel like they're just they're behind you, just giving you a shove.
Okay.
They want you to go where they want you to go.
Yep.
Now, also, those, what would you say for our listeners, actually, if they're going through anything within their own life, like spiritual, what would you suggest?
I think one of the things I would say too is just stop and breathe to start with, because we're living in a world that is so much chaos right now. But the chaos is required to make change, because not all of us like to make changes. And, you know, if you feel that there is a spiritual thing happening, you know, find someone in your area that you can talk to. You know, don't just hide away, because as I tell people, you know, once you flick the switch, there's no turning it off. You know, whether you want to be going, I make a joke, you can go willingly or you can go kicking and screaming, but either way you're going.
Yeah.
So the more that you can find community, people to talk to go, I'm not crazy. It's not just me. There's other people. I think that is important to help people understand they're not alone, because I think through this process, we go to that place, right, of kind of feeling lost and alone. So I think community is important, finding someone who's educated in, if you will, spiritual techniques or processes that can help answer some questions and help you feel more at ease.
All right. Well, would you say thank you very much for Paula for joining us? Again, though, for everybody that's interested, her website, again, though, is paulahunter.ca. And we do say thanks very much for coming in today into the studio. And we do look forward for actually having you back later down the road.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the invite. It's appreciated.